Hey, welcome to the table. It's great to have you with us. We're going to be talking about some pretty relevant topics faced by parents today, including digital addiction, online pornography, and parenting teenagers. So stick around while we have a chat. My name's Fiona, and joining me on the table today is the lovely Mary Ellen, Rachel, and Shona. Shona the showstopper. How are you, ladies?
Good, doing really well.
I love this colour coordination we've got going on.
Yeah, really good.
Excellent. We're going to be talking a lot about teenagers today. So first up, let's get our facts straight. Apparently, teenagers have different brains to the rest of us. Please explain, Mary Ellen.
Me?
Yes.
Well, if by different you mean I'm only 20 and I don't understand them, then I mean, what's with all this like lit and like FOMO and I don't understand. But more biologically speaking, there's a study being done that was published in The Conversation that said that the adolescent body actually doesn't fall asleep before 10:45 p.m. It's impossible to fall asleep, and therefore schools should be starting later in order to allow them to have 8 hours sleep every night. I'm quite sceptical of this personally, but I don't know. What do you think?
You don't want to sleep in longer? I think any excuse to sleep in longer.
Yeah, I think the studies were done in America, and apparently they're pushing for schools to start later because teenagers don't get up till
Yes, but
later.
if you start pushing school later, then how are these children, teenagers, going to get up and go to work?
Yeah, I guess
Work for most people starts at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. If you start allowing them to go to school at 10 o'clock in the morning,
well, let them have a childhood.
So you're saying we should just suck it up? They
Suck
should just
it
suck it
up.
up,
Yeah,
get up,
absolutely.
go to school?
No, I think we should let them have a childhood, you know? Well, I mean, if you look in college, most people, at least when I was in university, most people try to avoid 8 a.m. classes. So what are we really teaching them if they have to start at 7 in high school?
To behave like a real adult.
I know, but you have your
that's the
whole life
point.
to be an adult, you know? Like, we should let them enjoy their childhoods, and if that's going to be the time they're able to perform better is later in the day.
Like, I understand what you're saying, you know, they should be programmed for life, essentially, but the point of the article was actually saying that we don't have teenagers don't have the capacity to wake up that early.
Okay, this I don't agree with.
Well, mine do. It's called a
Capacity, like, you know what I'm saying?
You've got teenage boys. Did they struggle to get up in the morning? Did you have struggle
They
getting them up?
they struggle to get up early in the morning because they go to bed late.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Is that to do with the fact that they were online, they were looking at their
At
screens
their
or on
phones,
computers?
on their computers, whatever. I have no sympathy for them. They get a shoe thrown at them or a cold flannel or something. I'm sorry, but it's just...
Okay, I agree with you that it's not that they're not capable of getting up earlier. Of course they're capable. If we all lived on a farm and they had to go milk a cow, they'd figure it out. You know, they'd get up at the crack of dawn and figure out how to milk the cow. But if we can allow them to have more of a childhood and that's the time that they're able to perform better, then what's the point of making them wake up early?
Just going back to those blue lights, the watching the phone and before you go to sleep, the blue light apparently keeps you up at night, and that's what's happening. And kids are staying up late on their phone, 9 hours apparently.
9 hours a day.
9 hours a day on their phone.
Mine are easily doing that.
Yeah, but it's not just fluorescent light. I mean, that is a huge factor. But there's also things like sugar. Sugar keeps you up late, according to many studies, and homework. I mean, the amount of homework the kids have, it's kind of hard to wind down after, you know, doing homework.
Excuse me. Try owning your own business and see how many hours you have to stay up.
So do you have tips on how to wind down at the end of the day? Does anyone here have tips on how to get in bed and make sleep a priority?
Okay, I don't think that we should be demonizing all of the screens because they're not going away. We live in a digital world. We're going to continue to live in a digital world. So maybe we just have a cutoff time. From this time forward, we can start winding down. Maybe you want to read a book, listen to some music. You know, I'm not exactly sure what other activities.
I have to agree because apparently they say an hour before you go to sleep, switch off. Switch off, get offline.
But I think also, you know, it's a bit hard to try and get teenagers to do it now when we haven't been programming them. But smaller children, start teaching them to get off it at a reasonable hour and only to have a certain amount of time on it. Start programming them when they're younger.
Yeah, because apparently 15% of adolescents, of teenagers, are getting the right amount of sleep. So 85% are not going to bed, not getting 8.5 hours a night. And they need to get, what, 8 to 10?
8 to 10 hours, yeah. I swear it's mainly the culture, though. I mean, if your friends aren't going to bed until midnight, you're not going to go to bed until midnight either.
It depends what house you live in, too.
Yeah, my house they are.
It's crazy. Okay, but I do wonder how much teenagers are being affected by the fact that the internet is so accessible. Smartphones, tablets, fridges. For goodness sake, it's pretty common knowledge now that the average age kids are exposed to porn is about 11 years old. These kids are looking at porn or exposed to at 11 years of age. That's quite early, and apparently it's decreasing to 8.
Yeah, I read an article where it was girls at 8.
Girls
Exposed.
You know what? I think traditionally we've always thought of porn as being in magazines or being in, movies in these very secluded places. But I think regular TV now, we might almost consider it to be what was previously considered to be porn. So some of the exposure could just be happening in normal places,
In
not
a commercial.
Yeah.
Ads. Yeah. There's ads out there that are really creepy.
Yeah.
Just creepy.
I didn't watch music videos. I haven't watched them in years. And I joined a gym, and whenever I would go to the gym, I would see the music videos playing on the screen. And it was, no, seriously,
It was pretty much soft porn.
It was like watching soft porn while I was exercising. Sometimes I felt ashamed because there'd be people, running next to me, and I felt ashamed for what was on the screen.
And subliminally, or these are the messages that our young kids are watching and taking in, and it's normal. It's normalising sex. And
this is the thing. When I was 11, the websites that I was accessing, which is where the majority of porn is accessed, I would assume, were like Neopets, Club Penguin, little games like that. But these days, they're on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, which are all very sexualized media platforms, in my opinion. And there's adults that are using these platforms. And most, there's a lot of children that are underage on these websites. I think the minimum age is 13 for most of them, but there's 11-year-olds on them. So
I think Facebook's 13.
Well, how do they get onto it, though, if the underage?
They have phones, and
but I think
they sign up.
we have to be honest
Really?
that a lot of this content is not gated content. It's not content that, you need the parent's password to get into on the TV. If it's on music videos, that's on MTV or VH1, all you really need to do is turn your TV on.
I mean, we live in a day and age where sex sells, and that's the way everything has been marketed to not only adults, but children. And so they're growing up thinking it's normal to, degrade women or to look a certain way or to show certain body parts. I don't think that's the issue. That is an issue because they're desensitised to porn. It's
terrifying.
Everyone does it, apparently.
The just 8-year-olds sexting and all of this other stuff that's going on. It's just terrifying.
I think one of the issues also is that, we keep saying, it's normalising sex. Sex is normal. We're not normalising sex. Sex is normal.
Sorry, talking about porn.
Yeah, I think it's about having those conversations so that... Because
violent behaviour.
A lot of them are thinking that this is what sex is. So sex is normal, but the information they're getting about sex is from these different places.
And it's not normal.
It degrades women. It degrades women. It degrades men. And these are the things that I know from a Christian perspective, God wants us to glorify him with our body, not to degrade him with our body. So I think we just need to maybe educate our children and have conversations where we can with them.
And I think as it talks about this topic of sex, it creates shame around sex so that parents feel like they can't have those conversations around sex because sex becomes this dirty thing as opposed to this thing that God created that he intended for us to enjoy.
And on top of that, I'm sure there's a lot of parents that are struggling with porn themselves. And so hypocritical, there's that aspect there. So to confront someone, it's sort of, uncomfortable.
It's one of those big taboos, isn't it, within the church?
I think there's filter programs that, as parents, we can get to block some of these sites.
Yes. I think we've talked about it on here before, and there's like Net Nanny, and there's a whole lot of other things. There was one that you could load that would tell you which sites your children had gone to and how long they had been on the internet for. I found that really helpful with my kids, being able to monitor but not be the big baddie about it.
And Shona, when did you start giving your children a phone? Did you pay for their phone? What was a good age?
I'm still paying for their phones. I didn't give my kids telephones until they started going to school on the school bus. So they were like 12 and 13. So I was really lucky that it was later on. If it had been really early, I don't know how I would have been able to manage one of my children with the phones.
Yeah, well, shockingly, 50% of primary school age children now have their own mobile phone.
But you can give them a dumb phone.
They don't want a dumb phone.
But hey, you're the parent. You can give them a dumb phone.
We'll see how you cope with that when yours is 6.
Becomes a teaser. So true. These are pretty tough issues, which we will get to further explore with guest sexologist and author Patricia Weerakoon, who will join us later on the table. But first, time for a fun home hack. And Gia has a delicious quinoa salad recipe to share with us. Check it out.
Okay, mums and dads, the only way I know for teenagers to have a good night's sleep is to totally remove all their distractions. Get them to bring any of their phones, iPads, iPods, anything into the kitchen, pop it in the basket. That way they can go to bed and have the good night's sleep that they really need. Having a hard time getting the little ones to sleep? What you do, just pop a few drops of lavender oil into the rinse cycle of your sheets when you're washing their sheets. A few drops in there, and that'll promote a really good night's sleep for the little ones.
Shout out to all those busy mums out there. I have a very special salad today. Look, let's be honest, salads are not everyone's favourite. They don't have a good reputation, but this salad is going to blow your mind. It's a quinoa pomegranate salad. And Olive here, you're going to help me before you eat it all, yeah? Okay, so it's quite simple to put together. I've actually used 2 cups of cooked quinoa, and then we're going to use lots of green fresh herbs. Are you going to help me? Go ahead, let's put the parsley in. So it's just 1 bunch of parsley. Go on. You put it in. 1 bunch of mint, so the mint. Look at all that fresh green stuff. This one's Olive's favourite. Go on. 1 cup of currants or raisins, whatever you want to buy, whatever's in the store. And this is a whole seeded pomegranate. And you know, if they're in season, I would buy lots of them and de-seed them and put them in a Ziploc bag and throw them in the freezer because they last for months through the winter season. And let's mix it around. Do you want to put, oh, okay, let's put some of that in there. There's no dressing to this salad. And mums, if you make this at the beginning of the week, you are going to be safe for the whole week. You're going to have so much energy having this for lunch. I keep it in the fridge for the week. It lasts me 5 days. And I've got so much energy for my little energetic children. Okay, let's... Do you want to put some in here, Olive? Actually, you get the lime for me. How about that? Put some lime in there, squeeze some lime. Big squeeze. Wow, that's a good one. Oh, you're really trying, aren't you? And there you have it. Lunch is served.
Teen, teenage, and even teenager were reportedly first used in the 1920s and 1930s. They referred to people between the ages of 13 to 18 and gradually became seen as a distinct group in media, advertising, and literature. Rebel Without a Cause, a 1955 dramatic film about rebellious teenagers, was originally banned in New Zealand out of fear that it would incite teenage delinquency. On appeal, it was released the next year with some scenes cut out. Incredible achievements have been made by teenagers. Mark Zuckerberg commercialised Facebook at the age of 19. Louis Braille invented the Braille system at 15. And Bobby Fischer became an international chess grandmaster at 14.
Well, luckily, I've got a few years before I need to worry about raising teenagers, but I guess it pays to be prepared. So it's great that we have Patricia Weerakoon here with us. She's a sexologist and the author of a number of books, including this one, Teen Sex by the Book. Thanks for being with us, Patricia.
Great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, excellent. What was the inspiration and why did you write this book and some of the other books that you've read?
Well, I'm a sexologist. A sexologist is basically somebody who studies sex, writes about sex, speaks about sex, researches sex, doesn't let a lot of time for having sex. But
I was going to say, is there much time for sex?
well, my son, who's an only child, says that's why he's an only child. Anyway, so I've been an academic with Sydney Uni for a long time, and when I retired in 2012 at the age of 65, I was approached by Christian Education Publications saying, you've been speaking about sex and studying it, how about bringing it to bear on the Word of God? So, and I have real heart for young people, so that's why we wrote Teen Sex by the Book, by the Bible, to say teenagers are such an important age. Their brains are so vulnerable, their lives could be made or broken at that age. And so we wrote that one. And then people were saying, what about younger kids? So we wrote the other book called Growing Up by the Book, which was 9 to 14s and involves conversations with parents. And now people are saying, what about younger kids? Because young kids, primary schoolers, are being exposed to pornography. And so we're now writing one called Birds and Bees by the Book, which should be out soon.
These books are for parents or for children?
Yeah, teen sex is basically what you hand to your 15-year-old, 15 above, and they kind of throw it in the trash and then pick it up and read it because it's a sex book.
Has it got something to do with the teenage brain? Is that what's going on, like the way the chemicals work?
Oh, yeah. You see, it's very interesting. In the old days, when I was in medical school with the dinosaurs, we used to think that the brain kind of grew till 6 years and then just didn't change. Now we know that's not true. All our brains, all your brains, ladies, are what we call neuroplastic. So whatever goes into your brain will affect the wiring. Now that happens very rapidly in the developing brain from childhood to the 20s.
To the 20s?
Yeah.
Now so it captures those teens who are watching porn, being affected by it, and it affects their brain.
Exactly. But the interesting thing is, the first part of the brain to mature is the emotional brain, the feelings, and the reward system. You know, that I want it now.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Right.
That matures with puberty. But the control brain, the self-control part, doesn't mature till the mid-20s. So you were saying, you know, you look at your teenager and think, you're so out of control. They are out of control.
See, the brain doesn't work properly.
It's just the way they brain. I tell teenagers when I speak in schools that their brains are like red Ferraris on steroids. So the accelerator to
and
the
their hormones are as well.
And the hormones are affecting the brain.
So, Patricia, you've said the word sex so many times, I think the rating on the show has gone up. But how did you become comfortable? Because I know so many parents are so uncomfortable having these conversations.
But even as a Christian, being a sexologist.
And a Sri Lankan.
Yes.
You've broken cultural barriers.
Every single barrier. Well, I guess it's partly because of my education. See, God had me in the right place at the right time. I was doing my postgraduate study in Hawaii, and my professor was a sexologist. I was 30 years old, and I was running his gender clinics and his sexual health clinics. And I was still worshiping in a wonderful evangelical Baptist church. So I was able to bring my twin passions of God and sex together. And that's where I was able to really develop my expertise and my just love for speaking to people about healthy sexuality from a Bible-based perspective.
So what about for parents who don't have, you know, they haven't been blessed to have that background you have? What would you encourage them to do to feel more comfortable having these conversations with their teenagers? Besides buy your book, of course.
And see, the important thing to recognize is that you, as parent or carer, are their primary educator and source. You see,
we can't leave it to the PE teacher. We can't leave it to physical ed.
You can't. Because if you don't do it, their friends will tell them, or sadly, they will get it from pornography.
Yeah, I think sometimes we think of porn being like the sexual thing, but sometimes kids are probably going there because they're curious about what sex is. And they haven't had those conversations.
I've had boys tell me, where else would we know what girls want? I mean, I tell them, no girl wants to be your porn star.
And it's so sad because they're getting this misconstrued view of what a loving intimacy with your partner should be about.
Because 80% of pornography out there is violence against women.
Yes.
Wow. It's misogynistic, it's violent, it's abusive fantasy sex.
Would you say it's a drug?
It uses the circuits in the brain, what we call the reward circuits. You see, what we call the dopamine circuits. God has given us these beautiful circuits in our brain to fall in love and to feel desire. You see, Satan can only take God's good gift and twist it around. And that's exactly what porn does. It floods those circuits with like super stimulation. And therefore, it just takes over because the kids are into a very high reward system. They want rewards quickly, and porn uses that.
What role does technology particular, we've been talking about that this morning, play in, you know, the lives of children in relation to porn and in relation to everything you've been talking about. Like, have you seen a lot more issues now that technology is so prevalent with...
Yeah, we call the generation of teenagers today the cyber generation, because they're like they were born with their iPhone in the hand, which was so uncomfortable for parents when they're giving birth. But anyway, I mean, you know, that's the way it seems. In fact, the generation of like under 5, 6 years are being called Generation Glass or Generation Alpha, because they don't even need to press a button. They only swipe.
That's it. You just go
They
left
swipe.
and right.
Yeah.
So they are even different generation. So they are born and living in a digital world. And so they are surrounded by all this information just a click away. And a lot of that information is unmonitored. And that's why they're so exposed to pornography.
Awesome insights there. Thanks so much, Patricia.
You're welcome.
Now, I know digital addiction crosses over into your area of expertise, and we'd love to discuss that with you. But before we get into it, let's check out what the word on the street is when it comes to digital addiction.
How many hours do you think you spend in front of screens per day?
Oh,
You're being super honest.
probably, including my phone, more than 5 hours a day.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 4 hours. Probably more, yeah.
About an hour?
That's pretty good.
10 hours, probably. It's like most of the day.
Not many.
They almost spend most of the time. Like, let's say, 5, 6 hours, right? Yeah.
If I don't have a baby, maybe 10 hours per day. Yes. Yes. But now, because I have a baby and I have to take care of him, and I think I should be a good role model for him, because I think look at the screen is not very good. You should work out and have social life, have real life with people. So I just try to avoid taking out my phone.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
The struggle is definitely real when it comes to digital addiction, I think, for most of us, and especially teenagers.
You know, what worries me most there is the number of hours the adults are using. Because one of the research studies asked children, how available are your parents to you? And about 60% said our parents are not available to us. What are they doing? They're on their phones. How dare we as parents do that? We are trying to limit what our kids use. We call it being a social media mentor to your children. And we're getting out there and telling parents, be a social media mentor. You can't control yourself, and you're trying to get your children to develop their self-control.
So what are practical tips that parents can use to, you know, calm down or slow down the digital use? Because it's everywhere.
Well, you have to slow your own use down, it seems.
Yeah,
from
monkey
what
see,
she's
monkey
saying.
do,
Yeah.
isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Because as you rightly said, it's about, firstly, you know, everything in sex or digital use is caught more than taught. So you need to be their role model.
Yeah.
And what you do, kids will watch and learn.
But I almost think we can't blame ourselves completely, because these Facebook, Instagram, all these apps are intentionally programmed to hold our attention and to keep us addicted by, like, you know, appealing to our sense of, like, attention and validation and belonging and all that. So, like, how do you combat that? Such an inherent need sort of for these things, and then, you know what I'm saying though? Like,
I guess some of that can happen in the family structure. I'm assuming that you can get validated, you can feel a sense of belonging.
Is that
and
what's
if we're
happening?
not
Is
present,
there emptiness? Are people lonely? Is that why we're looking to cyberspace? What do you think's going on there?
Well, partly it's about what's culture telling you, what's acceptable in culture. You want to be, you have this fear of missing out, the FOMO. You know, fear of being left
Fear
out.
of being offline. We've talked about that in an earlier episode.
I mean, you know, you've got this fear of, you've got to know what everybody's doing.
Why is that? What's going on? What's happening?
Well,
is there an underlying issue?
Partly, the research is saying that the more you are online, actually you are even more lonely, because you don't have that touch which we all need. We want people to touch us. We want people to care for us. And you're lonely when you're online.
I agree, because you do. I know we've spoken about this before, but you see people putting up the same sort of post to get a certain reaction. And it does. For me, I feel like it is lonely. I feel like when you are confident in God and who you are as you stand as a person, you don't really care about what another person's thinking about you, or whether you get a like or not.
And you were talking about validation. You see, sadly, our young people are looking for validation to social media and to what people tell them, rather than looking to the true identity which they can only get from Christ, and that identity in Jesus.
Amen.
It comes back to filling that God-shaped hole again, doesn't it? And what are you going to fill it with?
Yeah.
Some
Should we
people
be
it's
spending
porn,
more?
or some people it's alcohol, or
does it come back to the parents? Quality time with our kids, reassuring them that they are valued, who they, in the person that they are and what God's created them to be.
Finally, it comes back to parents and teachers and carers. You are responsible for helping them develop their self-control, giving them a true identity in Christ, because everything else will fall into place. And then teach them about healthy sexuality. Take them to Genesis, read the Bible with them, and explain to them that God has a beautiful plan for their life and their sex life. And God gives you a plan, God gives you a gift, and then God gives you a place where you can enjoy it, which is called marriage.
Amen.
What age do you think you should start telling your kids that?
Very early.
Very early.
You start actually before they go to primary school. We are now saying you've got to be teaching children how to resist pornography before they go to primary school. Very simply. Very simply, like if somebody shows you something that makes you go ick and people without clothes, then turn away, run away, and talk to a teacher or your parents. So this is bad, run away, talk to someone. We just tell people you've got to teach your kids before they go to primary school.
Well, we used to do that with drugs, didn't we? We used to say when my children were 5 and 6, if somebody offers you something through the fence, don't take it. So we're just doing the same thing with porn.
And safe touch.
Yes,
safe touch, porn, drugs. You just say, turn away, run away, talk to someone.
Because you read about it in the news. There's a lot of peer pressure for young children. I think there was an article in ABC News that said about a girl who was 8 and she
sexting.
So all the time.
Are we first teaching them about what healthy sexuality, healthy sex relationship looks like, and then telling them about the pornography and the inappropriate touch? Because I imagine if we do it in the other order, they might then feel shame around sex, and it's still something healthy that we should be,
It's so important. This is what we first teach them, God's good pattern for their lives and their sex lives, how precious their body is. Kids don't recognize how precious their body is. It's not like something on the shelf at reject shop. The preciousness.
Is that the message? Your body is not something you can just get off from the shelf at the reject shop.
Correct.
This has been a great episode. I know we've looked at some pretty full-on topics, but we've had a great time doing it. Thanks so much, ladies, and especially to our guest, Dr Patricia Weerakoon. Look, there's always room for you at the table. Let us know what you thought about this week's episode, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel and share our video with friends. You can also continue the conversation there. All the details are right there on your screen. Have a fantastic week. Until next time, God bless.